Welcome to part 2 of our food nutrition project training. Today we're going to focus specifically on our food challenge contest and the 24-25 contest guidelines for this contest. For those of y'all that don't know what food challenge is, it is 4-H's version of Iron Chef or Chopped. It's a really fun way for kids to learn some basic cooking skills while also working on their public speaking and teamwork skills as well. So as a reminder, before our first practice in November, and prior to them participating in anything 4-H related, all youth must be enrolled in 4-H online. And I also ask that the coach or the parent who is serving as the coach also be enrolled in 4-H online as well, especially if you're going to be driving kids to and from practice, to and from contests, whatever that looks like. I do ask that everyone is enrolled prior to our first practice. And if you are not enrolled prior to our first practice, you will not be able to participate in our first practice. So please make sure to get that taken care of prior to that November deadline or November practice. So real fast, I said this is a 2-part series. Our first part was on our food show contest, which is our individual contest where a 4-H'er can pre-select a recipe based on a theme, prepare a recipe at home, and use equipment that you have at your house. And then they will do a presentation, a skill showcase, and a quiz. So if your child might be interested in more of the individual aspect, go over to our YouTube and watch our food show training there. But real fast, that deadline to register is going to be October 11th. So that is tomorrow. So if that's something you're interested in, please make sure that you go and register for that as soon as possible. Whereas Food Challenge is our team contest where we have 3 to 4 members to a team. That is a requirement. You have to have 3 to 4. You can't have any less or any more than that. They receive a key ingredient and a category a day of the contest. They'll create a recipe or dish on site using only items available in their supply box, which we will go over here in a second. And then their part, or the part that they participate in within the food challenge contest, is going to be a presentation and an interview. So real fast, for those of y'all that have participated in food challenge before, we don't have any major changes. These are the only changes we've had this year, which was just items added to the supply box. So you can now have a bench scraper, a meat tenderizer, and a rolling pin in your supply box. So one of the other big differences between food show and food challenge is the only age divisions that are able to compete are going to be juniors who are 3rd to 5th grade, intermediates who are 6th through 8th grade, and seniors who are 9th through 12th grade. I do ask, or I suggest, that when you are creating your teams, try to get teams that are for sure in the same age division and if possible within the same grade level. That way, if your kids continue to do food challenge as they go through the 4-H program, they're not having to constantly find new teams. So just a real brief overview of what food challenge is. Like I mentioned, it is 4-H versions of Iron Chef or Chopped. It is a team event with 3 to 4 members. They receive one starter or key ingredient. And within 40 minutes, using that key ingredient and some additional items that are available for them to pick up day of contest, they then have to create a recipe and a presentation about the recipe that they've created. So I mentioned something about a supply box. So these are all the items the kids can use day of the contest, day of practices, all of the times we're doing anything food challenge related. These are the only items they can use. They can't have anything that's not on this list within their supply box. So just a quick reminder about some changes that happened in 23-24 food challenge year. You can have an empty tub for dirty dishes, which can be placed on top of your equipment box. Cookie cutters were added, and then you can either have cornstarch or flour in your supply box. New items, as I mentioned, for the 24-25 year are bench scrapers, meat tenderizers, and a rolling pin. So again, these are the only items that you can have in your supply box. You can't have anything else. You don't have to have all of these items, but you can't have anything extra. So when you're trying to figure out what food challenge box is the best for you, these are just some of the ones that we've seen that have worked the best based on the amount of equipment you have to have. The middle one is my preferred one. However, they are a little bit pricey. So if you aren't sure if your kids are going to stick with it after this year, I would suggest looking at one of the cheaper boxes that will still get the job done. And then if they choose to keep doing it, if you want to make that transition over to one of these bigger boxes, that is great as well. Any box works. There are some specs to what the sizes of the boxes can be, and you can find those in our food challenge guidelines on our county webpage. But these are just some examples. Again, anything works, but I would suggest something with wheels because the kids do have to carry it to the contest site. For your dirty dishes, some teams will just use a trash bag. I would highly suggest looking at either adding a plastic box or a plastic tub like you see here. That way it's just easier for cleanup. And then that way you're not having stuff like just sloshing around in a trash bag. For the day of contest, I've started seeing these more and more. This little pop-up trash bag here has been great. I've seen some teams that have been super successful that use these things, and it kind of keeps the trash out of the kids' way during the contest. I'm not saying you have to use these. You can stick with just trash bags, but I have seen lots more teams starting to use something like this. So much like our food show contest, Food Challenge has 4 categories, which are going to be appetizer, main dish, side dish, and healthy dessert. The kids will not know until the day of the contest which category they fall in, so it's super important that they understand the key differences between these 4 categories. So again, first one is appetizer, which is going to be a small dish or food that is eaten prior to main course. However, when we're looking and creating our appetizers, I want the kids to think more of like finger food type things, not necessarily stuff that we would typically get at a restaurant like chips and salsa, chips and queso. Any of those appetizers, we're thinking more like finger food, party type foods. Then you have your main dish, which obviously is going to be the heaviest and heartiest and most substantial dish in your meal, followed by your side dish, which is typically served alongside the main dish, and then your healthy dessert, which is typically going to be served at the end of a meal or for special occasions. So the day of the contest, during that 40-minute prep time that the kids have, one of the first things they'll see is either a brown sack, a bag, whatever it may be, that has their key ingredient in it, their contest category, a list of all the additional ingredients in the grocery store, and then their resource packet. The only thing you need to bring day of is your supply box. So here on the screen, you'll see this is just an example of what the kids will receive in their bags. So it has everything listed out that they could possibly have access to at the grocery store day of, their category, and their key ingredient. So I just mentioned that they have access to a resource packet. So we will have resource packets at all the county practices we host, but I do suggest that you print these off for the kids as well, just so they can start looking at them and have their own copies of them. Your resources are going to be the My Plate mini poster, Fight Back, Know Your Nutrients, and Food Safety Fact Sheet. These resources are super important because that is what the kids will be using to create their presentation within that 40-minute time frame. So this is just an additional resource. They won't get it day of, but they can use it at practices, team meetings, whatever you want to use it for. But this is great for new and old teams. It helps you make sure that you're covering all the information needed in your presentation. So within your presentation, you should be covering the My Plate, dietary guidelines, nutrition knowledge, food prep, food safety, and serving size information. And then obviously there's any additional information you'd like to share with the judges. So for Food Challenge, during, again, that 40 minutes, each team creates a recipe, not a full meal, using the key ingredient and grocery store items that they have access to day of the contest. You must select at least 2 additional grocery store items to use within your recipe. You must plate 2 or more servings, with the team determining what a serving size is. Teams should not create sides or multiple dishes. And then during that 40 minutes, you need to prepare your dish, clean up your site, and prepare your presentation. During that 40 minutes, it is a judged part of the contest. So over the 40-minute time frame, judges are watching as the kids are creating their recipes. They're watching for food safety, teamwork, all of that stuff. So a lot of questions that we get are revolved around wearing gloves, hair restraints, and what the kids should wear. So specifically to gloves, you do not have to have gloves on the whole time, but there must always be some type of barrier between the kid and food. That means if you're not wearing gloves, you need to be using tongs, a fork, whatever that looks like, to hold the food in place if you don't want to wear gloves the whole time, but I would suggest wearing gloves the full time. And if you are wearing gloves, then you need to make sure that you are changing those constantly and that they're staying clean. For hair restraints, pretty much anything works. Hats, hairnets, bandanas, chef hats, whatever your kids or your teams are most comfortable with. But something has to be worn and has to keep their hair back. For the attire, a lot of teams will choose to wear coordinating clothing or aprons. That's not a requirement. That's completely up to each team, but you must wear closed-toed shoes during this contest. So after your preparation, the kids will move into their presentation. But again, putting your presentation together will take place during that 40-minute time frame. But when you go to the set of judges, you have a max of 5 minutes to cover my plate and dietary guidelines, nutrition of your dish, food prep steps and food safety, and then the serving size. Following that, you are going to be asked questions from the judges. So it's not only important that the kids are learning some skills while doing food challenge, but they should also be learning some general food and nutrition knowledge as well. So questions cannot pertain to anything that you should have covered in your presentation, which is why it's super important to make sure you're covering everything in your presentation. Questions should pertain to just general food and nutrition knowledge, what you learned, what would you do different, stuff like that. So for our county practices, for our food challenge program, we do host a few county practices. This is just my way to kind of check in with each team and see the progress of our teams. When we do host these county practices, what you need to bring with you are ingredients. So I will send out a recipe prior to our county practice and ask you to bring those ingredients with you, your supply box, team members, and a parent coach to stay with the team at all times. These practices are not required. Again, these are completely optional, but a way for me to see the progress. And if you practice outside of these times and you'd like me there, you'd like our FCH agent there, whoever you might want there, definitely let me know. We will try to make as many of them work as we possibly can, as much as we would love to coach and train all of our food challenge teams. When we have between 20 and 30 teams each year, it just gets a little harder each year to really do that. But feel free to send me an email, send me a text message with any dates, and we will see what we can make work. So for food challenge, when you're training and having your practices, spend time with your teammates or your team members and watch them. Watch for conflicts, communication issues. Are they getting along? Are they being sarcastic towards each other? All of that stuff, because during that prep time, those judges are watching for that. They're watching to make sure the kids are getting along. They're not yelling at each other. They're not threatening each other, anything like that. And then make food challenge work for you. So practice at home. You don't always have to have a full food challenge practice with all of your team members. If each individual team member is at home cooking with their parents, shopping for ingredients, whatever that looks like, that is all extra practice that they can get outside of having to have all your team members together. And then these are just some tips for a competitive team that we've kind of gathered over the years of us doing it. If you do food show and food challenge, that is a super big, helpful thing. Food show and food challenge, though, one is individual, one is team. The stuff that you're going to cover is the same type of stuff. So it just kind of works out when you do both of those. Team members should keep the same job / speaking parts throughout the year. We've had some teams that will kind of bounce around who's in charge of what. I would highly suggest giving each team member a speaking role and giving each team member a specific role that they can make sure that that's their thing they do each practice and each contest. Have a coach for each team. Again, as much as I would love to coach every single one of our teams, we do ask that each team has at least one parent who is willing to step up and serve as the food challenge coach. Work outside of the county practices. You saw we have kind of a limited amount of practices this year. So being able to practice outside of those is going to be super beneficial to y'all. And then, of course, practice, but make sure the kids are also having fun and not getting tired or worn out on our food challenge program. So here are just a few important deadlines for y'all to pay attention to. You do not want to miss these deadlines, because if these deadlines are missed, for a few of these, you won't be entered in a contest. For our invitational, we will have a late registration period, but after the other contests, we will not. So for our team information, that's our first deadline that's coming up. If your child is interested in food challenge, or you'll already have a food challenge team, please make sure to fill out that by October 25th. After October 25th, that is what I will use to contact coaches and kids about anything food challenge related. Our invitational food challenge contest is what we like to call our county contest as well, but we open it up to the state. We'll be on December 20th at the San Angelo Fairgrounds. You will submit your registration through the county webpage. It's $60 per team by November 15th. After November 15th, we'll have a very short late registration period where it's going to be $75 per team. For the San Angelo and District 7 contest for new families, this contest is held in conjunction with each other. So we use the San Angelo contest as our district contest as well. That contest date is going to be January 22nd at the San Angelo Fairgrounds. You will likely submit this through the county webpage. I'm still working on getting a form put together. And I will need that stuff by November 25th, and that's going to be $60 a team. I have two other food challenge contests that I just want to share with y'all real quick that will also be on the San Angelo form for y'all to fill out. We have the San Antonio Livestock Show Food Challenge, which this year will be a team event. It'll be held on February 6th at the San Antonio Fairgrounds. If this is something your team might be interested in, you must register on this form because we have to submit you with all of our other major show entries. The next one is the Houston Livestock Show Food Challenge. This one, it's really important for us to know ahead of time because we are only able to submit 2 teams per age division per county. So that contest is going to be in March, but I still would like y'all to fill out that form by November 22nd. On that form, it'll be more of, are you interested in participating? I'm not going to require payment just yet for that one, just because it's so much further on down the line. But I just want to make sure y'all have all of these dates, all of this information out there. I also will be working on sending out an email with all of these dates, all the things food challenge related here shortly. Or if you're listening to it already, you've already seen the email. But that's where we'll have a lot of our food challenge dates as well as just on our county webpage. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about our food challenge contest. I know that was kind of a quick one. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at the office, send me an email, or if you have my cell phone number, send me a text message and I will try to answer your questions the best I can. Thank you.